just looking at your Instagram, is your dating profile just shirtless pics?
No, it's actually not. I have a picture of me with some of my real estate customers whenever I was closing a deal. Just kind of, I was in a suit on that one. And then I have a picture or a video of me playing tennis, whipping some ass in tennis. Kind of showing my hobbies. And I think I do have one group picture, but that's about it. I think the main focus should be yourself. A lot of people talk about, all these group photos and dogs and things. And sure, that can work. But honestly, it's just you, they just care about you.
You're listening to the premier podcast for men who want to not only be better with women, but want to be better men in general. This is the Come On Man podcast. And here's your host, Paul Bauer.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another week of Come On Man. If you haven't done so already, please like, fave, subscribe, hit those notifications. You know what to do already. If you guys are watching during the live, the pre-recorded live on Mondays, please sound off in the chat. I'm usually in there editing videos or whatever, so sound off. That helps boost us in the algorithm. If you guys are watching on the replay, sound off below. Your favorite emoji doesn't even matter. All right? God, what is up with my beard? I don't even know. If you guys are listening on your favorite audio platform, please give it a 5-star review, okay? It helps more than, only takes a couple of seconds. Most of you guys are listening on Apple Podcasts, so take a moment, give us a 5-star review, write out why you like the show. Even if it's one sentence, doesn't even matter. All right, guys, my guest this week is none other than Garrett Gaines. He's a young buck coming up in the space. My man Rollo Tomasi, he says he's been working with this kid, coaching him a little bit, and I was like, you know what? I want to talk to this kid. He's pissing off a lot of the guys in the RAR squad. That's Ryan's community. For whatever reason, they don't like him, but I think he's a cool kid. He's just a young buck. Maybe we were all a little bit like Garrett back in our day. But Garrett's a cool kid, man, and he's got an interesting story. He's jacked, right? He looks like your classic Chad looking dude. So I wanted to talk to him, see what he was all about. I'll bring you that conversation right after these words. Life is a journey filled with twists and turns. Why is it that essential life lessons aren't taught in school? You probably know that the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, but do you know how to invest in a Roth IRA? We're not taught to build ourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. The roadmap to success is more than just a college degree. You don't have to follow the traditional route. Success isn't confined to a classroom. It's about discovering your own path. You ever wish that someone handed you a guidebook to life when you were 18? Well, it's never too late to rewrite your story. Everything I wish I knew when I was 18. Advice for young men to create a great life for themselves. This book is your compass, guiding you to pick the right career, how to invest wisely, and how to prepare for a fulfilling future. To take control of your health and your fitness. Learn how to date efficiently and find genuine desire. And master the art of leading healthy relationships. Your path is defined by the choices you make, not by others' expectations. Don't wait until you're 35 to unlock your potential. Order your copy now on Amazon. Rewrite your story. Build the life you deserve. All right, joining me on the podcast is a young buck who has been ruffling a lot of feathers on Twitter lately, particularly with some of the other guys in the space I work with. He likes to make content around dark triad maxing and dating psychology. It's Garrett Walker, better known as Garrett Gaines. What's going on, brother?
Just had a bunch of caffeine, had a killer workout. I wish we could have, scheduled us under different pretenses, but here I am ready to go.
All right. It's good. Any pretense is good, I think.
Exactly.
I like talking to other guys in this space. I don't really care what other people think,
Yeah,
so,
same here.
I want to work with everybody. I'm not trying to gatekeep or anything like that.
Sure.
So let's start with this one. I took a look at your free online dating profile guide. I liked your advice in your bio section saying, why don't you come try to figure me out? And I understand the psychology of it, but can you explain why a headline like that would get results?
I think results can definitely vary because, as we know, attractiveness is everything on dating apps. And I just honestly, it was the first thing I typed. I was like, you know what? I kind of want to have them reaching out to me first whenever I first got a dating app. And I was like, you know what? I just want to be a little mysterious. How about we just leave it with come try and figure me out? And honestly, the response I got was highly positive and the results were great. So I just kind of rolled with it.
Is no, you're a jack dude. You're fit, you're young, you got a fucking perfect mane.
Thank you. Thank you.
I mean, do you just like have some a couple of shirtless pics and then that single line and like that's just like you're just cleaning house on there or what?
That's it. Yeah, cleaning house, man. I mean, I could have, 5 different hookups every night for a year and still keep going but honestly, I kind of use it as a crab trap. I like to say, like some people say fishing line. I just put it down, leave it unattended, come back whenever I need.
Okay. That's fair enough. Now your advice on photo selection is interesting, particularly regarding group photos and shirtless pics. Now, just looking at your Instagram, is your dating profile just shirtless pics?
No, it's actually not. I have a picture of me with some of my real estate customers whenever I was closing a deal. Just kind of I was in a suit on that one, and then I have a picture or a video of me playing tennis. Whipping some ass in tennis. Kind of showing my hobbies, and I think I do have one group picture, but that's about it. I think the main focus should be yourself. A lot of people talk about all these group photos and dogs and things. And sure, that can work. But honestly, it's just you, they just care about you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the way I like to explain it is you do want to kind of tell a story, right? Like you're,
Right.
that you live a sort of a fun, exciting lifestyle because chicks just want to join your lifestyle anyway. So if it's all just selfies and you got 5 selfies in the same outfit in your house, I mean, that's boring, just
I think it
basically.
depends on what the girl wants as well, because if she's just looking for a hookup, the girl that you text at 11, what you doing, she doesn't care about your group picture. She just cares if you're hot.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah. And then the group picture, I mean, now what did you say about it in your guide there? Cause I actually, it made me think for a minute. I was like, oh, I never thought about that before.
Honestly, I couldn't tell you word for word. It's been probably 4 months since I've updated that.
Hmm.
But I probably said something along the lines of showing your value, showing that, especially if you have a group photo, if you're in the center of it and the people around you look like they're having a good time, it's just kind of showing that you're a genuine person. People like to be around you and you do fun things.
Yeah. That's what I recall it saying. You want to, if you're going to have one, be in the center of it. And
Right.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So in the realm of online dating messaging, you emphasize the importance of standing out. Now, how do you guide clients to craft messages that are both attention grabbing and effective at keeping her interested, as well as building her emotional investment?
So I will say this, I don't have any clients. I'm not actively really working on it. I'm kind of just working on building a
Mm.
audience right now, and providing value for completely free.
Oh, okay.
So, just deciding what I do want to do if I do decide to take clients in the future. But
Well,
as far
the
as
reason why I ask is because I think in some of your calls to actions of your videos I saw, you were like, well, DM me. And like, do you get guys DMing you?
I do, yeah. And honestly, my goal with that was to just provide free value because I was so new in this space. I was just
Yeah.
want to get out there, provide value, and not even ask for anything.
There you go. So you guys can just hit him up directly. He's giving
Yep.
it all. He's giving the goods away for free right now. So that's
Yeah.
good.
The original question
Yeah.
was,
Like, how do you get, what would you tell a guy who DMs you then, how to
yeah,
do all
it's
that?
very circumstantial, of course, and it also depends on what age they are, how they look. The better you look, the more straight up you can be as far as your initial approach. But I like to take an approach from noticing something that about that girl in specific that stands out. Maybe she has a very genuine smile and she actually looks happy in all the pictures. Or, you can tell she's a spiritual, maybe she's like a stoke dodging, kind of person, like in love with crystals and things like that. And honestly, I don't have just one template that I say to guys to use, because anything can work. Really, it's highly circumstantial. But I say, look at the girl. What is your initial impression of her? And mention it. Or even if you want to say something like, hey, I noticed something about your pictures, and maybe that's going to get a response from them, something like that.
Yeah. That was always my go-to opener was, and I can't remember where I learned it. I think I read it in like a throwaway article that I found on Google once years ago. And it just seemed to work really well, which was just to guess what the chick was thinking in the moment and just say, hey, pick number 3. You look like you forgot to unplug your toaster or something, whatever, whatever it was that she looked like, in that picture.
Yep.
There was one chick that I ended up hooking up with during the pandemic, and she looked like she had this like professional picture down by the river, and it looked like the cover of of like an album, like a music album. I go, you look like you're singing. What were you singing in that picture? And she's like, I wasn't singing. I was getting these, whatever. But it's making those types of statements oftentimes will get a response because either you're right and they're like, oh yeah, you're right, how perceptive, or you're completely wrong and they're quick to correct you. They're like, oh,
exactly.
Yeah. So
yeah, and asking questions is great, especially if they're already attracted to you. They're gonna respond.
Yeah, definitely. So I just like talk about texting too. We can move on here after this, but so that sounds more like an opener, like how you would open. But how long do you banter back and forth before you try to find a segue to do an in-person meetup?
I've experimented from even the first message being, or not even the first message after the opener being like, hey, what are you doing this week? Or, whatever else. That's just, usually it's like, I'm free on Thursday night. Would that work for you? And that's within, the first 2 messages. And sometimes that does scare them off if they're not looking for an immediate hookup. And where was I going with that? So yeah, depending on the second message, it's worked, but typically between 7 to 8 is a good number, as long as you've built enough comfort and also enough push, kind of that push-pull method, even with texting, giving them a little shit here and there, but also showing them that you're interested and that you are attracted to them. It can work anywhere between the 8 to 10 message range, I would say.
When for new guys just tuning in, I've never heard that expression. What do you mean by push-pull?
I mean, show them that you have interest in getting to know them more, but also showing them that you're a man who has options and you're not immediately head over heels in love with her beauty, and that you actually might have standards besides her looking good. And kind of conveying that through your message. It's really hard to describe off the top of my head, but I could definitely find some examples in my messages and screenshot that and kind of show guys that push-pull method.
Okay. Well, so DM him if you guys want an example of that. So speaking of texting, this is a good segue to your texting guide. So I downloaded that too, and it's only a cover page. So what?
Is it really?
Yeah, it's just a cover page. I was like,
okay,
God damn it. I was hoping to get the keys to the kingdom on how to fucking get the bitches, but it's just got a cover page. So when are you planning on adding more to that? Because it was something like five keys to tech. I can't remember what.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I have it. I guess I have it in my computer somewhere. It's probably, I have it. I guess it's just a glitch or something. I'm not sure what's up with that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for telling me about that, though. I'll work
on that. Go check it out, because it's on your Gumroad, and I was like,
it is.
This seems fascinating, and because you have 2 free PDFs like that. The first one is the dating profile guide, which has some good tips in it, and then I was like, oh sweet, let's see what he has to say about texting, because that's always a fun conversation. And I was like, what? God damn it, Garrett. Get your shit together.
Come on, Garrett Gaines. Come on. I'm gonna get that fixed tonight, so anyone watching this can get my secrets, my keys.
There you go. Yeah, we'll make sure to link to that in the description here. So let's talk about your YouTube and stuff like that. So I was watching your video about the invisible man, and you were talking about people's aversion to the concept of alpha and beta, which I know you saw my tweet today about it,
Yeah.
because I was watching your video and I was like, it was pissing me off. Not what you were saying, but just the fact that people argue about it all the time. And I
Sure.
just thought of that tweet like spur of the moment last night and scheduled that out.
Yeah.
But can you give us a Cliff's Notes on your thoughts about alpha and beta and like people's aversion to it?
You know, I was reading Chateau Artiste on Game, and he also mentioned about, you know, how that can ruffle some feathers, and people like to, you know, talk about that a lot. And I agree, there's a point where it is overused in the sense of, you know, oh, I'm alpha and this dude's beta as fuck, stuff like that. But I think if you're going to completely deny that those dynamics exist, that's just ignorant. Because you can clearly see in most situations which guy is more confident, he has more ability, and things like that in a situation versus someone else. You know, and like I said, there's contextual alphas and betas as well, and they're not exclusive. You can be both.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like to for those types of people that like to argue that, because they're really arguing semantics. You know, it's like, look,
That's true.
Look, you could say women that or guys that women want to fuck and guys that they don't. I mean, we're literally talking about the same thing, you know. And there's a reason why there's guys that they prefer to fuck, and there's guys that they just would rather friend zone. You know, there's a reason for that. You can call it whatever you want. We just happen to label it alpha and beta because it's fucking easy. It's way easier to describe that, you know.
But it triggers people because they're like, they don't know where they stand, and then they're like, oh, maybe I'm not alpha, maybe he's calling me beta, and they get all flustered and things like that.
Right. Yeah. It's sort of it triggers them in their own way, and they tend to project their insecurities on you. And it's funny, actually. I think it's hilarious. It's like, look,
the most common thing, the most projection I see is when a guy's like, oh, well, an alpha would never call himself an alpha. And I agree with that. Because if you're outwardly saying, oh, I'm an alpha male, you're kind of, maybe you are in a sense, but it's like, why are you having to tell everybody? You know, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and I think in an everyday situation, Garrett, you wouldn't be walking up to random chicks and being like, hey, by the way, I'm an alpha, just FYI. Like you just wouldn't do that, you know? And I think people thinking that you're doing that, or any of us in the space are doing that, are retarded, because you're not, but we're explaining dynamics online. So we do tend to use those terms, and whether we call ourselves that or not it's sort of irrelevant. We're sort of using it as a descriptor, you know?
Exactly. And it's not just, you know, guys tend to say, when I talk about alpha males, they're just describing themselves, you know, and they just use their own description. But it's hard to have just one description of these terms, because it's a very deep, nuanced topic. But guys are just like, oh, he's, you know, an alpha is jacked and he's rich and stuff like that. And they're just describing themselves.
Right. Yeah. Have you read, and I would be surprised if you read it, but also wouldn't be surprised. Have you ever read The Married Man Sex Life Primer by Athol K?
No, have not.
That's actually an old school red pill book. And I say old school, I mean, I think it came out in 2011. It's not that old, but it's more in the dynamic of like a marriage, right? And he describes it really well in the forms of like how you make women feel chemically in the body.
Yes.
You know, and it's like his description of it is probably the best I've ever heard, you know, but he's like, look, if you're giving her dopamine spikes and you know, her testosterone levels are sort of peaked a little bit, because women have testosterone too, and they're sort of, you know, that's where their sexual urges come from. That's you making, you know, that's her now looking at you as an alpha, you know, she wants to fuck, right? But if you give her that comfort feeling, the dopamine, and, you know, that the serotonin, that's beta, and women need that too. Like there's a, you know, hypergamy is dualistic, right? They want both. So it's guys just get so fucking caught up in the shit. It's humorous, actually, and sad.
Yeah, it is. And I don't know if you're familiar with Casey Zander on YouTube. Have you heard of him?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So he talks a lot about how it's not, the um, outward things like your money, how many cars you have, how many abs you have. It's about the internal guts of the man and how women classify alpha, whether they call it that or not. It's different
Mhm.
from how men would classify alpha.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it really it's the women's perception of you is what categorizes you. And in that moment, you know, it could be you talk about contextual alphas, right? You might be an alpha in your fucking video game circle, and the chick that's
Exactly.
trying to get with some video game nerds is hanging out, and like you're the best video gamer, like you're the alpha in that group, you know. But you know, if you go and hang out with a bunch of football players, like you're probably not the alpha in that group, you know. And
Exactly.
the cheerleaders are probably going for the, you know, the top football guy. It's all, yeah, it's it's all contextual for sure. So yeah, so my favorite are the guys that bring up the wolf study, and I mentioned that in my tweets. Are you familiar with the wolf study, or have you ever heard of it?
Not really. I've, seen it here and there, but I'm not very familiar with it.
Yeah, so it's something, and I've never actually read the wolf study. I've just read like, because it comes up in the comments a lot. They're like, "This has been disproven by the wolf study," you know. But something along the lines of alphas and wolf packs were studied in the 40s in captivity, right? And the results of that study were that, oh well, it looks like they, you know, they have a pecking order and they try to figure out who's in charge, and then they go with who's ever the most dominant, right? But I guess sometime later they found out that in the wild they don't do that. Like, it's wolves sort of have a hierarchy, but it's because their packs are made up of family members. So like it's the father and the mother, and then, like, you know, their cubs and stuff, and that's what forms the pack, and it's
Right.
has nothing to do with alpha beta. But it's like you can see it in other fucking animals, you know. Like, why are you guys so focused on
On
wolves and
wolves.
shit, you know?
Right. Like maybe the gorilla or the primate, study would be even better. But
Yeah, but you see it in like, so I live out in the middle of nowhere. I live out in ranch country, and there's lots of hunting out here. I used to go hunting when I was a kid. There's a season out here called the rut, right? Where you know, the bucks get together, they start locking horns and stuff, and who's ever the most dominant gets access to all the females for mating. Like, that's what we're talking about here, you know?
pretty obvious. Like you can just go out in your forest and probably see something like that.
Oh yeah, yeah. You see it. You can just watch, you know, God, Wild America or something. I don't know if that show's still on. When I was a kid on PBS, used to watch Wild America with Marty Stauffer, and they would show this stuff all the time. Like, you know, the bighorn sheep like to butt heads and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's all just a dominance display to get access to the chicks, and the chicks just sit around waiting for the best that can, you know, come about, and then they're like, oh yeah, he's the strongest one, I want to bang that guy.
Like
Yeah,
Rolo says, they're just waiting at the finish line.
yeah, exactly. So, and you see it in humans too, you know, like you know when someone has a dominant masculine presence, like when someone like commands attention and they walk into the room, like everyone looks over. Like, if a guy walks into a bar and he's got 4 chicks on his arms, you know, like people stop what they're doing and look like, what's this guy all about? You know, you could see it in everyday life. It's so frustrating, dude.
Yeah, and I mean, it's even, of course, walking in with women will help you, but even if you don't have them, you're still going to catch eyes. And I don't know if you watched my recent video, I called it Fake Alphas. And I
Oh,
was talking about the guys who have to try and prove something by, patting you on the shoulder and clearly trying to assert their dominance physically and shake your hand extra long and, dominate you through eye contact. And that's just like, I feel like that is a form of not just compensating, but overcompensating.
it's amogging, you know.
It is, but is it real? Like, is that genuinely how they are, or are they just trying to perceive them that way?
Yeah, I guess it depends on the situation. You know RP Thor.
Yeah.
So Thor has he has his book on dominant masculine presence, and I don't know if he talks about it in this, but he also has a course on dominant masculine presence that he let me audit once, and he talks about like how to do that in a way that it's not going to offend the other guy, right?
That's
But
what guys need to learn, is how to not offend other people and make it so obvious what they're doing.
yeah, there's no reason for that, you know. And what Thor talks about is when you go to shake someone's hand, you know, you keep this finger up so that you
Feels bigger.
well, so you do that, but you also have tactical control over their hand, right? So if they do something, now you can control them if you have to. But it also it's just sort of to let them know, hey man, you know, like we're cool.
And I 100% agree with that. Yeah, but
Yeah.
when it's the guys that you know that's not truly how they feel, but they're doing it because they're intimidated or because they see you as a threat, that's when it's like, I don't think you're really that guy.
Yeah, you know who's really like that?
Who?
Fucking Brazilian jiu-jitsu guys. Those BJJ guys
you're
are
right.
sucking each other's dicks so much. Talking about, dude, they are worse than CrossFitters, dude. They will tell you that they are training for BJJ. Like they'll try to work that into any conversation. You're like, oh, okay, oh, you're one of those guys. Okay.
I respect those guys, but you don't need to be so outward about it. You know, it is what it is.
Yeah, you know, I studied martial arts for years when I was a kid. I barely talk about it on my channel. I barely talk about it. You know, I'm not all about, because guys, one thing that I learned when I was doing martial arts is that guys that talk about it a lot are usually like basically asking for a fight, you know, and people that are asking for a fight usually have never been in a real fucking fight. You know what I mean? Like once you've been in some scraps, like you're not looking for a fight all the time, you know?
Exactly.
It's unnecessary most of the time, you know? And if you ever read like Art of War, you know, Sun Tzu is basically like, I'm paraphrasing here, but he says, you know, the best test of a warrior is someone that can end a fight before it even happens, you know? So yeah, I don't know.
I mean, even, you know, you see it with a lot with like UFC guys or, you know, roid rage guys.
Mm-hmm.
Their first instinct is to fight. But I truly think, like, especially if you're that kind of guy, if you're a professional fighter, really, you know what you're doing, that should be the last resort, because it doesn't have to be that way. It can be handled before it gets to that point.
Oh, absolutely. And if you watch any of John Fitch's videos, and John Fitch is a legit fighter. Like no one in this space would fuck with that guy.
No.
Right. And because he's former world fucking champion, you know, MMA fighter. He'll be the first to tell you, like, there's no reason to get in a fight on the street for what? Because someone called you a bad name or something, like, oh, I got to defend my honor. You know what?
Right. Exactly. Like if you're sure of yourself, like that's not going to affect you. Like, unless if you're upset about it, it's because you think there's something true about it.
Right. Yeah. Oftentimes it just reminds me of, I think I mentioned on the podcast before. I had this first grade teacher, Mrs. Rundle. Shout out to Mrs. Rundle if she's still alive. I remember, like, you know, you're a little kid and you're like, so-and-so called me a poopy head or whatever. And she's like, well, are you? You know, I'm like, what?
Exactly.
Of course not, Mrs. Rundle. Why? That's a dumb question, you know, but as an adult, you know, someone who's worked on my frame and stuff like that, the guy who's done the work in the space, I'm like, man, yeah, no, I am not a poopy head. So why would that bother me if they call me that? Like, that's them just being stupid, you know?
You know, but then it's like, it's also very nuanced. Then it's like, okay, well, what is fighting words versus what is not? You know, when should you actually defend your honor, your girl's honor, your family's honor? Like, when is it called for?
I would say if there's an actual imminent, you know, physical threat. I would say if there's a real serious physical threat, that's possible in that situation. But most of the time, it's not. You know,
I agree, 100%.
That's the way I look at that sort of thing. Let's talk about another one of your videos. So I watched your video on a men's guide to girls' night out, and you brought up some interesting points. One, I commented on this video, by the way.
Yeah.
You said she's bored and her man is not creating a social life of abundance. Can you explain what you meant by that?
Yeah, I just think if you're in a long-term relationship or a, you know, committed relationship with a girl that you're exclusively seeing, and she wants to go out with her girls, it's because you guys aren't going out enough, and you're not like, if you had an abundant social life, she would be surrounded by other girls if you guys went out together, and she would get her social fill for that day, for that week, whatever it is. But it's because you probably just sit at home eating popcorn, watching movies with her every night. Yeah, no shit, she's going to want to go out, especially if she's in her party years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and there's like anything else in the space, there's nuance with this. Like there are girls that, especially in their party years, they're just sluts, you know, and they're just going to do that. And they're just, but you should know that pretty early on in the relationship, you know, and those types of girls you might consider not getting into a long-term relationship with. But it's if you got a girl that never goes out, and she only goes out with you, and then you stop taking her out, she is. I agree with that. She is going to get bored. And most guys are fucking lazy. You know, they think
crazy.
They get into a relationship and they think they've reached the finish line, and they're like, I already got her. You know, they let themselves go. They stop getting all jacked and stuff. And it's such a funny situation because they get all fat, they stop taking her out, and then they wonder why they leave. And then they go back and hit the gym. It's like, bro, you should have never stopped going to the gym. What is your problem?
Yeah, I mean, and ask any girl, they'll also tell you that same thing. They're like, so many guys just get way too comfortable once they've received that commitment or whatever it is.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of women do too. Honestly, a lot of women do too. But I am a firm believer that women are largely mirrors of their men. You know, and if a guy knows how to lead a relationship and lead the interaction, they typically don't get that way. You know, and if you introduce a healthy amount of dread game, you know, I'm not talking about like the toxic bullshit, but just being an attractive guy, a guy that's so attractive that other chicks are sort of making passes on in front of your girl, or even just like lightly flirting. Like girls notice that kind of stuff. That
or
kind
even
of
just
stuff,
looking at you, because girls notice when other girls are looking at you, and that's in and of itself is a form of dread.
Yeah. And so, I mean, if you're that guy and you're maintaining that level of attractiveness, like they're going to put investment in. They're going to, in hypergamy is always asking one question, right? Can I do better? And if she sees that all these other chicks are sort of giving you the eyes still, she's like, no, I'm doing pretty good. And they're not going to want to leave and go out on girls' nights out. And girls aren't fucking stupid. They know when they're acting shitty. They know that they shouldn't be going out with their hoe friends. So when they're doing it, yeah, I think, and I think the concept of that video was like, that's the beginning of the end of the relationship, right? I mean,
it could be, because I also believe it's very up to your personal preferences and knowing what your own boundary is. Because if you're gonna like be okay with her going out, then you need to go out too, to somewhere else. You know, and if you're not going to do that, just realize that maybe this isn't the situation that you should be in. If you're not willing to, you know, go out and have your own social life when she goes out, and or if you're really averse to that, if you're feeling really, really lazy or something that day, just look for anything that's off, because your intuition is so much stronger when it comes to, you know, thinking about whether she's cheating or not. Girls can try and hide it, and they can hide it, but most of the time you're going to get a little subtle sign that something's off.
Yeah, that reminds me of something I learned from Rollo, which was, you know, guys should never have to like go looking through their girl's phone for text messages and stuff like that, because if you have the inkling that she's like messing around, like that's your gut saying something's off in the relationship, and she probably already is, you know, she probably is already, you know, she might not be actively sleeping with other dudes, but she's probably chatting with them, you know. And
she's always looking for the strongest, as Casey Zander says, she's looking for the strongest cock. That's just true. You know, mentally strong, physically strong, emotionally strong.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's just women's nature. And it's like, guys that get so pissed at that, it's like, well, why wouldn't they? You know, why does it, like, if you take a step back, why wouldn't they take the best that they could possibly get? Why wouldn't you? You know, like, why are you settling?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And you should be, you know, happy that she had that. If you believe in that, if you believe that she's always looking for the best, then you are the best if she's with you. So,
yeah, or be the best. Try to be the
best.
fucking best. You know, one thing that I want to know how your take on this, but whenever I talk about that, like, you know, basically, the concept is, if you don't date your girl, some other dude will, right? Some guys, especially if they've been in LTRs or they're married and they're miserable and stuff like that, and they're like, they basically hate their wives, but they also don't want to do anything about it and don't want to break up. They can sort of get mad, and they're like, they don't like the concept of having to somehow provide entertainment for their girl. They're like, oh, it's too much work. Like, look, I'm not some dancing monkey that's just here to facilitate, her entertainment. I've got shit to work on and stuff like that. What's your take on guys with that kind of attitude?
I think it doesn't have to be that you're the jester, you're the dancing monkey. I think it should be that you have a fun, interesting life, and she's along for the ride. You have your fun, you have your sexy hobbies, you ski in the winter or things like that, and you're genuinely just a funny person. You like to do fun things. You don't like to just sit around the house. And that's not you going out of your way to provide entertainment for her. It works out because you already have this fun life, and now you have found a beautiful woman that you enjoy hanging out with to bring along on the ride.
Yeah. Yeah, I was one of those guys. I was married. I was married for 14 years, and it ended up divorced. And I was one of those guys. I didn't do shit. I would go to work. I would work late because I hated her, and I'd come home and eat dinner, watch TV, go to bed, and just repeat. Never took her out. Never even considered coming up with date nights and stuff like that. And I realized, not after that, but after the relationship I was in after that, because I basically fell on old habits then too. Although I when I was married, I ended up being a fat fuck, and I ended up losing all the weight with that second relationship. But one of the things I realized was like, Jesus Christ, I'm a boring motherfucker. I am boring, and so I went out and actively tried to find fun things for me to do. And I was like, I don't like being bored, like this is actually fun. I enjoy going out and doing these things. I just had to change my mindset about it, because I used to think, oh, it's so much of a pain to go out and do that stuff. But I changed my mindset and said, no, I think I do want to go out and have more fun and actually enjoy my life and not just waste it sitting on the couch, eating popcorn and, watching TV and drinking beer and shit. And so,
yeah. And I mean, it comes back to the burden of performance, it's something that you have to accept. And, as men, we're going to have to work late hours. We're going to be exhausted after a long day of work. And all we want to do as men is just be lazy in that off time. But if you wish to have a successful relationship, you got to accept something like you have to do fun things.
Yeah. Yeah. And then what I realized is like, oh, you know what? Actually going out and having fun is fun. It's fun. So I'm going to do this whether I have a chick or not. It turns out that chicks just find that attractive. It's like, oh, this guy's out here doing whatever. And, he's out running marathons and fucking whatever. So,
bitches love books. So you got to write a
book.
book.
He's writing books. Yeah. So this was also good too, because you talked about giving your girl an ultimatum and how it's futile. And can you explain why giving your girl an ultimatum is pointless in general?
Yeah, and I mean, clearly I got that from Rolo, because I might have even quoted him word for word on, demonstrate, don't explicate. But before I'm so glad I heard that, because I was the guy who's like, I'm a high value man, you're not going out, and trying to explain my boundaries and things like that, and over text trying to explain boundaries. And it is so futile, because you're just going to be called controlling, jealous, toxic. You're going to get everything thrown at you by her and even possibly her friends. So if you truly have a boundary where you are not okay with her going out by herself, even if you're going out somewhere separate, if that's your boundary, then just don't even explain it. Just like as Rolo says, let her go and change the lock, and then she'll know that she crossed the boundary. And if she really cares, then she's going to come back. And if not, then you dodged a bullet.
Yeah, and there's nuance with this too as well, because I think like early on in a relationship, women aren't mind readers, so I wouldn't say I would tell her as an ultimatum. But if you say, hey, my girls I date aren't hanging out with their hoe friends, going to girls only parties and camping, right? That's just how it is, right? And if she's got a problem with that, well, you can leave, you know, and you got to be okay with that. But if she's like doing it, like she actively is like, hey, I'm going out with Tiffany and your relationship's sort of on the rocks at this point anyway, just giving her that ultimatum is validation seeking on your part. You're basically making her the judge of who you are. And you saying, hey, look, you do this or we're breaking up. That basically just validates her, her decision to treat you like shit and have no respect for you anyway. So it's just
I
like,
agree 100%.
so yeah. So at that point, it's just like, well, you can leave, but you ain't coming back. You better, you know.
Yeah, it's just like that ultimatum is really just not, it is so not masculine when it's, especially like you said, when your relationship's on the rocks.
Yeah.
I mean, it just makes you seem weak.
Yeah. So at that point, it's just like, all right, well, you made your choice. Have a good night. And then just fucking never call her again. You know?
Yeah.
Yep. So I agree with that. Let's see here. So you're pretty jacked. We talked about this a little bit at the beginning. Have you been working out since you were 5 or something? Or how long have you been?
No. I've been working out for probably about 2.5 years now after I ended my 4-year LTR from 14 to 18. And I was, you know, just a skinny 135-pound guy.
So this is your high school sweetheart?
Yeah, she was.
Yeah. And she red pilled you already, huh? This is actually,
honestly, I think my parents' divorce red pilled me, but she was just icing on the cake.
Got it. Okay. It's how people get into the space fascinates me. So yeah, let's talk about that story. Have you told that story on your videos at all?
I haven't. No, I might have talked about it somewhere, but long story short, it was the typical wife envying the neighbor's wife, envying the life that she saw her living, and you know, with the rich doctor in the mansion, and you know, feeling like she deserved that, feeling entitled to that. And
this was your high school red pill chick.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, oh no, I'm asking, or is this
this was my parents.
This is your parents. Okay.
Yeah.
Your mom, your neighbors, you had rich doctor neighbors, and your mom's like,
correct.
I am owed rich doctor.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And that came from, you know, her parents as well, and feeling entitled. But yeah, long story short, she ended up having an affair with him, and to which my dad figured out. And, you know, as a Christian guy that he is, he was, you know, he had his values and he was working hard every day. And her reasoning was, you know, he wasn't there for her, and, you know, emotional, this and that. And I get it to a point where I'm like, well, you know, it's kind of like, you know, if your woman cheats, is it your fault? Which is kind of a whole nother thing. But yeah, that was just a whole lot for me to see.
You know,
exactly. And I was on the fence on that topic as well, because I'm like, you know, I never saw them argue, even if it was behind closed doors. We lived in the same house. I never heard anything. And I wasn't young enough to not remember. I mean, this happened when I was like 11 and 12. So I would have heard something. And then, you know, got into the whole alienation between parents and children and having to choose sides. And seeing all that at that ripe age, you know, in formative years where I'm old enough to remember and things like that.
How old were you when they split up?
I think I was about 12 whenever we moved houses.
Okay. Got it. All right. So, what did your dad do for a living?
And he still is. He's a real estate agent, and now he's a broker of his own company.
Okay. And you're in real estate now too?
Yes, I work under his brokerage as well.
Oh, okay. All right. So, I mean, it's not like he was not well to do. I mean,
real estate agents,
especially brokers, make pretty good money.
On the house on the water, beautiful neighborhood. We had a beautiful family, and it's just that he wasn't there for her, or she wasn't emotionally satisfied and didn't spend enough time, and you know, whatever.
Okay, got it. All right. So you learned at that moment, like, oh, you know, this is a thing, and maybe marriage is a bad deal for men, and
like anyone can cheat, but typically it ends up much worse for the guy.
Yeah, got it. And so then, so that was when you were 12, and then you said 14 through 18. So basically, your high school years, you were with high school sweetheart chick. So
Yeah.
what happened with that? Did she rip your heart out and stomp on it, or what?
Let me think. Not really, because at the end, I mean, I was the one that broke it off. But long story short, I got her. I was, very young, and we spent pretty much all of our time together. After a while, pretty much lived together because, when we were on school, we did online school together, online high school. So we'd even, work on school all day and hang out. And I guess I was not a man. I was a boy. I didn't know at all what it meant to be masculine, let alone masculine in a relationship. And it got to the point where we were clearly bored with each other. There was no real polarity there, no tension anymore, sexual tension. And she was very attractive, very beautiful singer, musician. And eventually I knew that something was off because she was with, we would hang out with our other musician friend who was a guy who was also an attractive guy. And they would practice together, music practice, stuff like that for their gigs. And I was like, I just knew something was up the entire time. And anytime I would say anything, I was jealous and controlling and toxic and things like that. So that was just, and I was very jealous and for reasons that, I know now, but I didn't know at the time. And long story short, she ended up sleeping over at his house one night with her friend there, though, with another girlfriend. And I was not comfortable with that at all. So I just left, and I was, he was the guy that I was always told not to worry about. Don't worry about him. It's a friend. And not 2 weeks after I break up with her, they're going to Orlando together. So
got it. So he was another band guy.
He was, yeah, another
contextual alpha.
Guitarist. Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, I had a similar situation. I had a girlfriend in high school. I've never told this story on the podcast, but I dated. This is the girl I lost my virginity to. We were only together for like 6 months, and it was like near the end of the year. I think right around when we started having a rocky situation, and I think it was like New Year's or something. I can't remember, but she didn't want to hang out with me that night. I wanted to go. I wanted to at least spend some time with her, and she didn't want to hang out with me that night. She'd much rather go hang out with her friend Jenny, and spend the night at Jenny's house. And Jenny's brother happened to be in town from the Marines, and Jenny's brother was a fucking ripped Marine, and he was a hunky hunk, and she didn't want to hang. She didn't want me there. And I found out later from a friend of mine that she ended up, sleeping with that guy that night.
Yeah.
And I was like, God damn it, so we ended up breaking up. But I didn't find out about that. I mean, I assumed something like that was happening, but I couldn't prove it. So I was like, blue pill guy, like, no, my girl wouldn't do that to me. And then found out later, like that most likely did happen. So,
and it's honestly a good thing that happened to us when we're that age.
I didn't fucking learn my lesson until after I was.
You didn't? Okay.
Yeah. No, I'm a late bloomer when it comes to learning this shit. So that's what I guess I wanted to sort of circle back around that. It's good that you're learning this at a fucking early age, because you're going to have, I think you're going to have a much easier experience in life when it comes to women, just having this understanding at such a young age of sexual dynamics, how women work and the concepts of attraction and stuff like that. And like, the sky's the limit once you know that, you can do whatever you want.
More of my friends were like, that's why I am trying to make content, because I pretty much got into this through Casey Zander, because he was probably 26 at the time when I started watching him. So I related to him more, which is why I am trying to reach that audience as well. That 18 to 24 demographic, because I'm saying things that they need to hear like, toxic relationships are kind of a good learning experience, but I want that to not happen for them, to not, or get the wrong girl pregnant, or, all these things that can happen at a young age.
Yeah. 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 Which is good, man. It's good. Yeah. I didn't learn all this stuff. And the sad thing is, most people don't even find this stuff until something bad happens, like red pills triage. And you can sit there and tell all these people this, and they'll just disregard it and go, you're a misogynist, all this stuff until it happens to them. And they're like, oh, maybe this guy's onto something.
What do you say when someone said, like, if you're talking about intersexual dynamics or anything, and they say you're a misogynist, what's the response to that,
Oh, I say I'm the worst kind of misogynist. I'm one with a platform.
Yeah, I love that.
I just
I don't even
agree.
know if misogyny exists. I mean, unless you're saying you simply hate women, I don't know if misogyny is really a thing.
I look at all that kind of stuff, whether it's coming from men or women, like it's a shit test. I treat it all the same, and one of the things I learned from another red pill book, No More Mr. Nice Guy, is deering, right? Which is defend, explain, what is it? Defend, explain. I always get this, the other one. It's excuse, defend, explain, excuse, and rationalize. Right? If someone's like attacking you and calling you something like that, trying to defend yourself just makes you weaker. It puts you in a weaker position. But if you absurdly agree and amplify whatever they're saying, it actually shows them that you're better than them because you don't give a fuck, right? It's like when your little sister is calling you a poopy face and you're just like, rub your head because you're cute,
Right.
you don't care, So that's the way I look at it. People call me a misogynist. They've been calling me that since I started doing this stuff a couple of years ago. And I just think it's funny now, when people say, who hurt you? Right. That's a common one. Who hurt you? I just reply back, everybody drink, because it's like a drinking game at this point. So
that's very common. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's just how I look at that sort of thing. Let's go back to you being Jack, though, because you are Garrett Gaines after all. So, what are your top 3 recommendations for guys to stay consistent in the gym and get to your level?
So I started working out at home. I had 20-pound dumbbells and I had a mirror. So I was able to see my progress in a very short time, especially with newbie gains. If you're new to the gym, the main thing is to just try and lift some weights for 15 minutes, do some curls, do some overhead presses with whatever you got. And if that's like a backpack, then do it. You don't have to get a gym membership. You can lift weights with anything. And once you even start seeing the slightest bit of progress, you've also increased your diet, or whether you're trying to lose weight too. You have your diet and you're lifting your weights and you see progress. Even if you lose a pound, in a week, you're like, okay, well, this is proving something to myself that I can do this. So seeing your progress is huge. Another thing is, honestly, if you wanted to make a social media account to hold yourself accountable, even if you have 0 followers, just kind of posting your escapades, with your workout. Like, today I did a 5-minute ab routine, or I did a few pull-ups today, or, doing 100 push-up challenge, things like that, to hold yourself accountable. And this is kind of a personal choice, but just learning to love it, just learning to love that feeling of getting your blood flowing, of doing something that is healthy for your body, staying active. And for me, it's become a part of my life that if I miss it, like I don't miss a day, except over holidays, but I have rest days, of course. But truly holding yourself to that standard. If you spend an hour a day watching Netflix, just go to the gym. I'm not saying you have to go intense weightlifting. Just get in there and just learn to truly love it and meet people in the gym. Say hey to everyone you see. It's a very nice community. And yeah, that's basically it.
That's good. In my book, I talk about there's only 4 exercises. And let me get your opinion on this, because this is a very controversial, Garrett. This is a very controversial thing I'm saying here. There's only 4 exercises guys need. And I base this off of my experience in the military, but also there was an old article on the Return of Kings that talked about this. And I was like, this is genius because it makes sense. But no, the only type of equipment I think that a guy really needs to have, like everything else is gravy, right? People argue all the time. Oh, what about deadlifts, bro? If you like doing that, fine. That's gravy. That's on top, right? But basically, something to do pull-ups with, right? Pull-ups or chin-ups. So you can get like a $20 door jam pull-up bar.
Yep.
And that's it. Otherwise, push-ups, sit-ups, right? Some kind of sit-ups or crunches, right? Or and squats, or running. And that will basically work your whole body out. So that was, I put that in the book, and then I was like, anything else after that is gravy. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree. Anything else is gravy. I mean, the pull-ups are going to be great for not only your back, of course, your lats. They also work your shoulders and your biceps. And there's all these different variations you can do. You know, of course, you got your wide grip, or you got your, you know, your chin up grip. We got your hands close. That's going to work more at your bicep. You can do all these different variations. So I agree with that. Your push-ups, of course, going to work your triceps and your chest. And then running or squats, yeah. But you're not going to get, you're not going to get jacked by doing those things, but that's okay. Not everyone's goal is to get jacked, but you can definitely get stronger and start reaching your goals just with those 4 exercises 100%.
Yeah, that old article from Return of Kings, what they were saying was, it was they cited some study saying that women don't necessarily like guys who are like super bulky anyway, and that they like more of the Brad Pitt from Fight Club look, and they're like, these 4 exercises will get you like Brad Pitt's shape if you do it right and you do your diet and stuff like that, because you can't outrun a bad diet, but I was like, yeah, man, just because a lot of guys have excuses like, oh, I can't afford a membership at the gym. It's like, well, everyone, all the real jack guys hate Planet Fitness, but Planet Fitness is $10, man. You can't afford that.
It's a great gym. No, I mean, the only problem that jack guys hate it is because they don't let you bring in your big water bottle or your stringer, and they don't allow a lot of noise, which is kind of necessary. If you like, I make noise. I'm not the biggest guy in the gym, but you have to if you want to work hard. And Planet Fitness is great for a lot of people, but not for everyone.
Yeah. Which I love, because I used to have a Planet Fitness membership. And I love that the lunk alarm and stuff like that. And this is a judge-free zone. Judge-free unless you're a fucking jack dude that needs to slam your weights down.
Yeah, and they're gonna judge those guys, the ones that are in probably not the best health shape, but they're the most muscular in there. So
right, yeah. So oftentimes too, people when they want to get fit and stuff like that, they want to know what your diet is. What's your diet like right now?
So one thing that I would say is very, my goal was to gain weight. So I had to increase my calories, and I didn't have a diet plan. I was like, I just need to eat more. And, that would be called a dirty bulk. If your goal is simply to eat more, you could even just supplement with fast food. It's unhealthy, but you're going to gain that weight that can then turn into muscle. But my diet right now is right at about 3,000 calories, mainly consisting of protein and carbs. And that's basically, and I get carbs from fruit as well. So, and that's a good diet to maintain my current weight and also put on muscle at the same time. But I'm also not natural, so I have an advantage over some, but most part, just go online, look up your calorie calculator, put in your information, put in your goal, and that's going to give you as much as you need. And then even go to an online service where you can order your meals. If that's something that's hard for you to find time to cook or to eat healthy, there's a lot of services out there now to really help with that.
So you're not natural. So would you say Trenbolone sandwiches then? Trenbolone?
I would say no, personally. I think, especially at my age. Yeah. But I mean, I know a lot of guys love it. They're like, a life without Tren is a life that is not a life worth living, and they kind of go with that because of how bad of a rap it gets. But
yeah, I know some people that use Tren. I know people that use stuff like Anavar and D-Bol and all that fun stuff.
All that fun stuff. Yep.
Well, what about natural supplements? Do you recommend any of those?
Yes. Let me show you this right here. I mean, this honestly, I don't want to say it saved my life, but it really, this is ashwagandha right here. And this is known to, decrease your cortisol, which is when you have high cortisol, which is related to stress, it also lowers your testosterone. So by lowering your cortisol, it raises your testosterone, and also it reduces anxiety and stress at the same time.
Oh, got it. Okay.
So that's a great one. And then creatine, everyone knows creatine pretty much. It's like the most studied natural supplement up there with caffeine. And it's just going to bring more water into your muscles and help you look a little bigger.
Yeah. It doesn't, I mean, it's also kind of like, it allows you to lift a little bit heavier too, right?
Yeah, it can. I mean, you load it up. Like if you just start taking it, people take like a large dose every day for 2 weeks, and then it can increase your strength. So that's a little bit. It's not going to be anything major, but you might notice some slight strength increase.
Got it. So that's where the trenbolone comes in. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, that's when Tren comes in. Yeah, whenever, like if you're in the gym for 2 days and you're feeling a little weak, just go ahead and take some Tren, and then you should reach your goals.
Perfect. All right. So, I only got a couple more questions that we can wrap up here. So your Twitter bio says that you're into dark triad maxing, which I find hilarious. Now,
yeah,
do you really advocate guys work on their narcissist, psychopath, and Machiavellian traits?
Honestly, yes, I do advocate for that.
Okay. Well, so what's the best way for guys to do that? How can they max out their dark triad traits?
So if you go look at my pinned tweet, I put it in there. I put in how to optimize your dark triad, how to max out your dark triad. But honestly, the way that I describe it is kind of maybe shocking to some, but it's simply by becoming the best version of yourself and living your best life. Because, you know, even if that means you're working on your skincare or your hair, you get a hair transplant or you get your eyebrows done, whatever it is, that could be considered narcissistic. You know, if you live your life unapologetically, without remorse, you say and do things without a filter, that could be considered psychopathic. And then as far as Machiavellianism, you know, just being able to kind of not use others, but people that are around you know how to get what you want that's best for you and for everyone without hurting anyone, but that could be considered manipulative.
We call that networking.
Yeah. Exactly. But hey, that's some dark triad right there, man. You're dark triad maxing.
Yeah, goddamn right. The chicks like that shit. So
they dig it. Chicks dig serial killers. So
they do. Okay, last question. So I saw one of your Instagram reels about why dudes need to stop watching Netflix with their girl. A lot of guys are going to get triggered by that. And I think we talked about it a little bit already, but can you give us the gist of that video?
I think that the more you're around your girl and you're doing lazy things like that, one, the less desire she's going to have for you. I mean, that should be pretty obvious because that's like the least masculine thing you should do. You should, you know, everyone's going to have downtime with their girl. I get it. And I'm not saying you should never, like, I just, you know, that's a good hook to kind of, you know,
oh, that's a great hook. That was a great hook. I was like,
yeah, thank you. So it's not like, it's not never, but you shouldn't really have a whole lot of time where you're not doing anything. In my humble opinion, and that was the point I was making, is you should be working on something for the majority of the day. But if that means you're watching Netflix for an hour or two at night when you go to sleep, I get it. But you shouldn't have that much downtime. She's going to see you as weaker. She's going to see you as less masculine, and she's going to go, you know, look for a better option, whether she finds one or not.
Yeah, one thing I would add to that is, I think it's okay on occasion and stuff like that. But chicks hate guys who are boring and predictable, you know?
Yes, the predictability.
If you're 7 days a week, you know, and you're like, hey, let's watch this on Netflix tonight, you know, and it's just like this the same every fucking day. Well, what are we going to do today, Garrett? Oh, well, we're going to watch Netflix tonight like we always do. Like that.
Yeah, the new movie came out. We got to watch it.
Yeah, it's fucking boring. So you got to keep chicks guessing, you know, because then they're like, ooh, what's going on? Like, they're like,
exactly. Yeah. I mean, even just go out, like go to the gym again at night. You know, I'm not saying you have to fake it like that, but the goal is you should be filling up your time to where you don't have that free time to watch hours and hours of meaningless shit.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, if you're married with kids, like the opportunities are not there so much to just be constantly busy and out. I mean, you have sort of obligations in the house, but still you can't be fucking predictable, I would say, you know.
How would you say, before we go, how would you say for a married person with kids, how could they increase how could they be less predictable in that sense?
Well, I think it really takes a lot of effort. And it's really going to take a lot of effort on the guy's part, I think. I don't know if you can hear my dog.
No, I can't. I might have heard a little spitter patter, but
she's supposed to be a professional podcaster, but sometimes she fails. So I would say you have to be creative. You have to make time. You have to make the plans and set the tone and lead, and just, you know, put that kind of effort in. And you have to make the plans to get a babysitter, make the plans, and maybe you live close enough where mom and dad can watch the kids, but you need to be active and seeing if, your in-laws or whatever can watch the kids so that you guys can go out and do some fun stuff. And I would say, don't always go out on the same fucking night. Don't always do the same thing. Don't every Thursday is fucking dinner at Sizzlers and we go see a movie. Like that's boring as fuck too. Keep things exciting. Every once in a while, throw in a mystery date and just be like, hey, we're going out Thursday and I want you to wear this. Well, where are we going? Well, you'll find out when we get there. That kind of shit. Chicks like that, so as long as you just keep that kind of spice going, like you can do that with kids too. It's just, there's a lot of other variables you got to deal with, that's all.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the predictable date. Yeah. Because you can even have predictable date nights, like you said. So it's really just about switching things up, maybe even taking a random trip for a weekend or something, driving, for me, like driving to New Orleans would be a perfect weekend trip because it's, kind of close, new change of scenery, things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. There'll be times where, cause I've got an LTR, right? So I call her Nurse Chick.
Yep.
I'll just get a wild hair and look something up online and go, oh, this is happening in Vegas. Hey, Vegas on the 13th, which we're doing, by the way, like Vegas on the 13th, we're going to go see this show. And she's like, oh, okay. And it's like, make the arrangements, get someone to watch your dog or whatever, but we're going. And I'll just come up with that stuff. I try to stay active. And the thing is that because I do that and she knows I do that, she does it too. Like she wants to keep this relationship thing going. So she puts in that investment. She'll make plans like that, and I don't hem and haw about it. Like, oh, I don't want to go do that, but she also knows not to schedule things like fucking wine and painting night. Cause I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
But
I'm actually going to be in Vegas on the 22nd. Will you be there around then?
No, I won't, unfortunately. Okay. But that would be cool though. Are you going to be on Access Vegas?
Possibly, if he does one around then, I don't know, but he did invite me out there. So to AVN specifically. So I have no idea, honestly, what that trip will entail.
Oh, you're going to AVN. Wait, who invited you? Rollo or
Rollo? Yeah.
Right. Rollo invited you to AVN. Oh, well, that should be fun for you.
Yeah, should be.
Man. All right. Well, Garrett, this has been a great conversation, brother. Where can people find you online?
Yeah, find me everywhere, Garrett X Gaines. My Instagram is just 2 Z's at the end. My first account got deleted by the Matrix. But Garrett X Gaines everywhere. Got my own website, which you can find in my bios everywhere. I'm on X, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, YouTube. You can't miss me.
Oh yeah, I think I found your account on TikTok. Do you have a big ass account?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I do have a big account on TikTok. I stopped posting on there.
Oh, did you? Yeah, you have 2 accounts on there, right?
Yeah, I do. Mm-hmm.
Okay. You stopped posting on there? I gotta stop doing that. I have 2 accounts on there also because actually I had 3. My first one got completely banned. Second one's shadow banned. This new one's under an account warning. That I fucking hate that app, man.
I know. It's only great for like the stupidest content. Anything educational or smart, just besides home math, pretty much goes unnoticed.
Yeah, it's a damn shame. Well, Garrett, thank you so much. I'll give you the rest of your evening back.
Thank you for having me. It was an honor. I'm glad to do it.
Yeah, you're welcome back anytime.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Garrett, thanks for joining me today, man. You're welcome back anytime. Fun conversation. Good getting to know you. Man, I need to get jacked like you, man. Like I need to get on that trend bologna sandwiches. You know what? you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. I'm just messing around. Anyway. Good talking to you. I appreciate you joining me today on the podcast. Guys, if you haven't done so already, please like, subscribe, hit those notifications. Thank you for everybody that sounded off in the live chat. Thanks for leaving a comment below. I'm trusting that you've done that, okay? I'm trusting that you guys have liked this video too. Sometimes I'll see hundreds of views on these videos and like 30 likes. It's like, come on, someone's slacking here. Someone's slacking. All right. Guys, get on the email list.comeonmanpod.com. I'll send you some free stickers. If you guys don't want the free stickers, just write "don't want stickers" in the address field, and you'll get 20 dating app openers, and you get a free chapter of my book, Everything I Wish I Knew When I Was 18. Speaking of the book, get the book on Amazon, books.comeonmanpod.com. That's all we have for this episode, guys. I will see you Wednesday for the live stream.
This has been the Come On Man podcast. New full episodes served hot every Monday morning on your favorite podcast platform of choice. So subscribe now. Follow Paul on social media. The links are in the description. Now, go out and get it.